Okay, welcome back to the channel. And I ran across something that I don't know anything about, and that's the story of Chris McCandless, or AKA Alexander Supertramp. I don't know anything about him. I remember years ago seeing some pictures of him sitting next to a bus, looking pretty bad. There was another picture of him holding a sign up, because he was in deep trouble and ultimately starved to death in the wilds of Alaska. He apparently had went up there to live off the land and all that stuff. And apparently he starved to death, and I have no idea why. So I don't want to watch this story, and we're watching this is a rare TV show about Chris McCandless, Alexander Supertramp, from Into the Wild. And this is a 2020 episode. I remember 2020 when I was a teenager. Mom and I used to watch that late at night. Sometimes when it was on, it was interesting. And I was still living at home then. I was still in high school. Anyway, let's get on with this and see what happened to Chris McCandless. So this episode's only like 17 minutes long. So hopefully they'll cover everything in here. All right, let's get started. 2020.
Now, an adventure story that is compelling and puzzling. The saga of Chris McCandless, a young man determined to put himself to some kind of test. What was he thinking when he headed west? Rejecting his privileged life, his family, even his own identity. Almost certainly he never envisioned.
No, he was born in 1968.
His journey,
so he'd been 8 years younger than me.
Inspiration for a best-selling book. And tonight, Tom Jarrell brings this young man and his powerful story.
It's really cold outside. That's why I'm sitting here in a jacket. On May the 1st, 2024, winter has revisited us.
It was an odyssey in the traditional sense of the word. He called it the spiritual revolution, to kill the false being within.
So the quality of this is not the greatest.
Transform his life.
Chris McCandless was captivated by the spell of Alaska. Rugged, wild, challenging. At age 22, he was itching for a romantic adventure. A chance to live like his hero, novelist Jack London, who penned The Call of the Wild. Alaska, where the northern lights stir that yearning for adventure which can haunt a young man.
Yeah, we've actually seen those from here.
Outside magazine editor John Krakauer was also drawn to Alaska.
Excuse me.
As an author, he wrote a book about McCandless called Into the Wild.
When a young person is moved by this sort of passion and feels compelled to go on this sort of quest, I think you have to let him. I think there's no way you can stop it. In our culture, we don't have formal rites of passage like in some ancient cultures. They're taking risk, subjecting yourself to a dangerous rite of passage maybe is something many people have to go through to become a man or a woman.
The mosaic of Chris McCandless growing up was typical of an affluent family in the 70s.
So this is
Snapshots revealed a
going to
happy
be someplace
youngster
called
waving to
Stampede,
his family,
Alaska,
hiking in the mountains,
or the Stampede Trail.
vacationing with his parents in the Caribbean.
Yeah,
Birthday celebrations.
I'm going to
and
have to look that
academic
up on
achievements.
Google Earth.
He emerged from childhood handsome and highly intelligent. His closest confidant was his sister, Corrine.
This is Chris right here. I like that picture of Chris. He's so cute.
I have a feeling this is in a recording
The
of
unconventional side of Chris McCandless appeared in high
VHS
school when he became
tape.
captain of the cross-country team, the Road
because of the
Warriors.
quality, but
They
it's
just go off on these suicide treks.
it's not terribly bad.
The whole point was to get lost.
They'd run out, get lost, find their bearings, run a little slower till I found their bearings, then run home again at full speed. So one of his
I've never
teammates
heard
said
of
this was
such
in
a
effect
thing.
how Chris led his whole life.
While at Emory University in Atlanta, McCandless and his friends made a video of college life, which included an uninhibited solo.
We have shared all that you have known.
He graduated with honors in May of 1990. He had achieved. His future was assured. When, at the party his parents threw, Chris announced he was going to drop out of sight for a while. He explained he needed to quench a thirst for adventure.
So he
headed
was
west,
just in
and
his
like the setting
20s.
sun, slowly vanished from the life he had known and the family that had raised him. McCandless was transformed, a nomad with a new life and a new name, Alexander Supertramp.
He aspired to be a super tramp, wandering the world, hanging out with bums and drifters, living on nothing but his wits. And for 2 years he did that, wandering around the West.
One of his favorite songs
He could have
was
been
Roger
right
Miller's
here.
King of the Roads.
There were ups and downs, times where he was feeling very alone, but then there were days where he was so elated and overjoyed and felt great.
Within months, the letters and calls home petered out. His parents were distraught. Their son had rejected them and their lifestyle.
He just wanted to go from adventure to adventure and experience life fully. He wasn't after security. He wasn't after the house, the kids, the car.
My parents were concerned, as any parent would be, that they hadn't heard from their son in so long, and they basically just wanted to know that he was all right and he was still alive. And so they hired a private investigator.
The investigator's search reached as far as Europe and South Africa, when Alex Supertramp was just cruising through the West. Some disturbing clues surfaced. The family was shocked to learn Chris had donated all of his money, over $24,000, to famine relief.
Wow.
But the Supertramp had vanished.
And this really freaked them out because they realized
It's a
he was
nice
trying
thing to be able to
not
do
be
that.
found. They got really worried then. They
But-
soon, they contacted the police, missing person stuff. None of it turned up anything.
You need
Years
money to
later,
live
John
on.
Krakauer retraced Chris McCandless's journey. He learned that when Chris had arrived at Lake Mead, California, he was caught in a flash flood and forced to abandon his car.
He took out the last money in his wallet, $123, put it in a little pile in the sand, lit it on fire, took a picture of it.
Wow.
What was the significance in giving away his remaining funds and then burning even his pocket money?
Chris thought money was inherently evil. He thought nothing good came of it. You didn't need it. It was corrupting. It made you cautious and greedy and
Well, there is
overly
some truth
concerned
to
about the
that
wrong
for
thing.
sure.
Alongside a remote highway in November of 1990, Wayne Westerberg picked up a thin young man who was hitching a ride.
Turns out he hadn't eaten in a couple days. He kind of ran out of his potatoes and whatever else, and he ate quite a meal there. And he was like sleeping at the table there before we hardly got done.
Westerberg's combine crews harvested grain across the Great Plains. He offered Alex Supertramp a job in Westerberg's hometown, Carthage, South Dakota, population 247. Here, the lonely traveler discovered a friendly community and briefly took root. Alex Supertramp had found a new surrogate family. From then on, he gave Carthage as his home address.
As the time came for him to leave, you asked him to stay, to work a little longer. You offered him an airline ticket. Why do you think he didn't take it? Went back to the thumb and hitchhiking and the rails.
Well, that was part of it to him. I mean, you couldn't do half the adventure without having the whole thing. Part of the whole thing was making the whole trip all the way to Alaska by foot, rail.
The
Wow.
long-anticipated Alaskan Odyssey was underway. Westberg received a postcard dated April 27, 1992. For the first time, Alex conveyed concern at the danger of venturing into the Alaskan outback. It read in part, "If this adventure proves fatal and you don't ever hear from me again, I want you to know you're a great man. I now walk into the wild." The fantasy was becoming reality.
Alex's message would turn out to be prophetic. Over the next weeks, he would keep a poignant diary of his wilderness experience, which would end as he never expected.
I didn't know he had a
Tom brings the
gun.
journey to its dramatic conclusion after this.
I did know that he had a diary. He kept
Alex
a diary.
Supertramp, as he now calls himself, has come to the most crucial part of his journey. Ahead of him lies the challenge of his life, the rugged Alaskan wilderness. He is alone, equipped with the barest essentials, determined to survive on his wits. But not every adventure has a happy ending. Tom Jarrell picks up the story at a dramatic and irrevocable crossroads.
Electrician Jim Gallion picked Alex up hitchhiking on the road between Fairbanks and Anchorage. He says he knew right away the young man was in over his head.
When I found out he didn't have any boots, I told him he could use mine. Just give me a call when he came out of the woods, get them back to me. He said he didn't want to see anybody. In fact, he gave me his watch. He had a comb. He had about 85 cents in change, and he just threw it on the dash of my truck, threw the map down, didn't want to know what day it was, what time it was, or where it was.
Wow.
Gallion dropped Alex off on an abandoned mining
That's
road
very
called the
dangerous.
Stampede Trail and snapped a photograph. It was the end of
Yeah,
April
he had a
1992,
camera with him,
and Alex Supertramp
and he
marched
took
into the
several
wild wearing a stranger's
pictures
The
of
adventure of his life was unfolding.
himself,
He was
selfie
enjoying
type
himself.
things.
He had to do the ultimate
Before
test,
there were
and anything less than
selfies.
that wouldn't have cut the mustard. After a couple of days, he came to a river, Tanganyika, which at the time, because things were still pretty well frozen up, was only about knee deep. It was cold, but he just waded across.
On the third day, he caught a glimpse of America's highest peak, Denali, away to the south.
4 days in,
I thought it was
he found
McKinley.
this bus called
Was
the Magic Bus.
oh, there's
The
the
bus,
bus.
a junker from Fairbanks left for hunters,
142.
was 28 miles from the main road. It was outfitted with a stove and a bed. Alex's
So he
backpack
finds
was only
the
half
bus.
full, carrying 10 pounds of rice, a .22 caliber rifle, some ammunition, and paperback books. He was determined to live off the land.
I don't know how much experience he had
From
doing
birds
that.
of prey circling overhead to moose and brown bear. In this primitive land, the hunters often become the hunted. In the spring, there's also a natural bounty of edible wild plants. Alex became philosophical. His Declaration of Independent Life was inscribed on the bus. Ultimate freedom, an extremist, an aesthetic voyager whose home is the road. He flees and walks alone upon the land to become lost in the wild. And he kept a daily log of his successes and failures. Posing with the game he caught, he snapped self-portraits.
Living off the land is a full-time job. I mean, he basically spent most of every day gathering berries and mushrooms and Eskimo potato, hunting small game. He shot a lot of porcupines, squirrels, grouse, ptarmigan. At one point, he shot the moose, which was like hitting the jackpot.
Wow.
This 700-800 pound moose.
But he did not know how to preserve the meat, and it soon
Oh,
by early July,
Yeah, that's
Alex
a
Supertramp
disaster.
had proven he could survive in the wild and was ready to head for home. He hiked back down the Stampede Trail toward the Tanganyika River.
Stampede Trail.
But the stream he had crossed easily in the spring had become a torrent of melted snow. Without
Oh.
maps which would have shown a way across the river nearby, Alex had become a prisoner, trapped on the wrong side of a raging river.
Oh, so
For the
he
first
couldn't
time,
get
his
back
journal
to the
entries
trail
implied danger. Days 68 and 69,
because
disaster, rained
of
in,
the
river looks impossible,
high river.
lonely, scared.
But apparently there was
no
another
fighting.
way.
Nature had spoken.
If
and
he'd had a map, he
back.
would have known that.
He returned to the bus and resumed gathering plants for food.
So it doesn't look much like a potato, but this is what they call Eskimo potato. And he figured the root's edible, the seeds of the same plant must also be edible. But they're not. What no one knew is that these seeds are in fact poisonous. And when you eat it, it prevents your
Oh.
body from digesting food.
His photograph shows a large bag of the poisoned seeds ready to be eaten. The journal confirms his
Oh,
suspicion on
my
day
goodness.
94.
Day
Extremely
94.
weak, fault of potato seed. Much trouble just to stand up. Starving, great jeopardy. Then, in spite of his predicament, a cause for celebration. Day 100, made it, but in the weakest condition of life. Death
100
looms a
days.
serious threat, have literally become trapped in the wild.
He posted
And
a note
very,
on the
very
door,
little
an
food to
SOS
eat.
note saying, if you happen to come by, please, this is no joke.
I want to
So,
find that
in one
bus.
sense, he hadn't written it off, but he knew he was in
I
deep
wonder if
trouble.
you can
He knew
find
that
it with
he might
Google
very well
Earth.
die, and he was facing death very bravely.
The Alaskan fantasy had indeed become a harsh reality. In signing the SOS note, Alexander Supertramp had become Chris McCandless again.
What meaning did you attach to that?
It's poignant. You know, it's speculation. He was acknowledging who he was. He was just, in the end, a young man in trouble.
The last stages of starvation are said to be accompanied by a euphoric sense of well-being. The final entry in his journal reads, "Beautiful blueberries." With no fat left on his body, he surely would have felt extremely cold.
Oh my goodness.
It's impossible to know when he gave up hope of rescue.
That's horrifying.
It's terrible to think about those last days.
That bus just would not
It's a very
hold the
painful
heat very
way to die.
well.
Go into convulsions, hallucinations. It's not an easy way to go. And the fact that he didn't put an end to his own life, he had plenty of ammunition, he had a rifle, but he faced death. He stayed to the end. He faced death very bravely.
Wow, I don't know how
On August 18th, 1992,
I could.
Christopher McCandless died, wrapped in the sleeping bag his mother had sewn for him. His boots stood by the stove. He had survived 113 days in the wilderness. 19 days later, 6 Alaskans happened to cross the bus and discovered the body. It weighed 67 pounds.
Oh,
This is the bed where he
that's
slept.
terrible.
It's eerie, almost as if it's frozen in
Terrible.
time. Just
10 months later, his parents, Billy and Walt McCandless, visited the bus.
Must have been
Billy
just so
came
horrible.
first.
I can only
She sat
imagine.
here. She looked at Chris's clothing, his belongings, fingered them, pressed them to her face. You could still smell Chris.
So the bus is still
They
there,
brought up
apparently,
small brass plaque, which Walt installed over here.
and it
honoring their
doesn't
son.
probably doesn't
Billy
get
left bouquet of
vandalized because
flowers.
it's
Um,
so far out
She was
there.
worried that she didn't want any other young man to die here, so she brought this survival kit and left it here. With
There's a
some warm
lot more
clothes,
videos on this subject, so
family Bible,
I'm sure that people
some cooking stuff, some
go up
food.
there and visit
Most
the
of which is
bus.
still here. People have respected it.
Yeah.
And there was a last message found in the bus. It was carefully printed in block letters.
This
"I have
is
had
a
happy
picture
life
I've seen.
And thank the Lord. Goodbye, and may God bless all." Then, with the note in hand, Chris McCandless captured a haunting image of a young man enduring a self-imposed rite of passage into manhood. He was alone, starving, beyond desperation, aware death was near.
He looks terribly gaunt and emaciated.
Yeah.
Looks like a concentration camp victim. But he has this amazing look of serenity in his eyes. He was at peace in a very real
Boy, how
sense.
terrible.
And that's something one has to admire. He doesn't run from it. He just accepts it. And
There's another
he
picture of
forgives
him sitting
his family, apologizes
beside the
for
bus.
everything.
Oh, right there.
Says, "I've led a
Okay.
happy life."
Yeah, I've seen that one, and I've seen
No
the
regrets.
last one
Chris
too.
McCandless was 24 years
And I
old
always
when his
wondered
odyssey
what-
ended in the Alaskan wilderness.
What happened? And the chair is still there,
If I had bet my
apparently.
life on whether my brother was happy on
Bus
the day that he died,
142.
I would tell you that he was. Now, he wasn't happy to be dying, but he was happy that he did everything in his life that he possibly could
How
to
very
live
sad.
his life, not just be alive. He
And
more
there
than
the bus
24 years
sits.
than most people get if they live to be 90.
Yeah, I can't wait to go on to Google Earth and see if I can actually find that location.
It might have seemed deliberate, but it really wasn't a subliminal suicide situation.
I don't think so, Hugh. There was a tone of that in his first note to his friend Westerberg, where he was talking about if I die, if I don't come back. Toward the end, though, he was looking forward to coming back to his family, back to his life, and he definitely wanted to get out. He just wound up trapped.
It does seem like a cruel thing to do to his parents, to drop out of sight.
It certainly is, and there was never an explanation of what caused the split. That's why he died there in the bus.
Fascinating, really compelling story. Thank you, Tom.
Okay. Well, that is that. I now know basically what happened to him. It's very, very sad that he couldn't get across that river. And how heartbreaking. That's really, really heartbreaking. Heartbreaking story. So that was 1992 when that happened. I would have been 32 years old. I was 32 years old at that time. And yeah, that's really a sad, sad story. So there's more information on this, of course. So I'll probably look at some other videos and check out the bus location and all that. So that's it. I know what happened to Chris McCandless now. So if you enjoyed this video, and maybe that's not the right thing to say, but anyway, please like and subscribe, and I'll be back with another reaction video very, very soon. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.